Hello students, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Let's learn together. I hope all of you are keeping yourself all positive and making the best of the time that you all have got in this scenario. Well, in today's video, my task is going to be an attempt to understand and to comprehend and to interpret the story of the first chapter of the book Vistas, which is titled as The Third Level by Jack Finney. Well, story, if you have read the story, that's that of course then it's going to be easier for you to understand this particular video and what I'm trying to talk to you about. And even if you have not read the story, just listen to the contents of this video carefully, go back to your book, read the story, try to relate it, and whatever the issues that I will be trying to highlight during this video, try to interpret the story if possible, and as much as possible keeping yourself within the broader purview of those points, right? However, you need to understand that this is going to be my perspective of the story. You can have your own perspective provided you're able to understand or you're able to keep the story within its broader perspective. Now, when I'm talking about keeping the story in its broader background or in its broader context, then what is the main context of this particular story? The main context of this particular story is that it is basically a story that belongs to the genre of science fiction, right? So now what is science fiction? See, all of you must be knowing something or other about science fiction. I do not really have to talk to you at very length on about particular this on this particular topic, because you have already been through your class 11th syllabus where you have read the story The Adventure by Jayant Narlikar, right? And in that particular story, I just begin I'm trying to begin by relating it to what are the contents that you already have in your mind. Let us just very briefly, in very short, discussed all those contents, and then we will move on to this particular chapter. So in Janan Narlikar's story, The Adventure, you find that there is this history professor, Professor Gaitonde, who accidentally makes a slippage into the time, and from one universe, that is the real universe, which is shared by you and me also, but this particular universe, he slips into a yet another parallel universe, and this parallel universe has altogether a different identities and different realities, and these are the differences between the realities of these two worlds are drastic. They're completely different, which has changed the fate of the nation completely because of one very slight change in the moment of the time of one of the history. Now, I'm not going to get into the story into details because you already know that, but why I'm referring to it is because I want you to understand what basically science fiction is. Since you have already read a story about how one person slips from one universe to the another universe, there was this concept of parallel universe into that story, which was being introduced to the reader by the writer, right? So when we talk about different parallel universes, it is something which has always remained outside the sphere of our comprehension, because we have always known or we have always thought are existed as just one universe only. So when there is this writer who comes to us, or in fact a set of scientists or theories, scientific theories, they talk to us about these particular ideas of parallel universe, or not just of universe but of multiverse, then there is some sort of a shift that one needs to make into his or her consciousness, because we are not very much acquainted with these kind of ideas in our day-to-day life, and we are prone to believe, or we have been through a particular belief system where we know certain things, where we have grown up with certain notions, and we generally do not allow ourselves to think beyond them, because we have never known that, and also because that appears to very illogical to our senses. So when I was teaching it, it was difficult for me to get the students into the concept of parallel universe, because as you can imagine, it was very difficult for us to imagine the concept of parallel universe. How could there be one more universe outside or adjacent to this particular universe? It is definitely difficult. Now, why I'm trying to get at, I'm trying to take you through this, is that I want you to understand the themes of the science fiction. Science fiction is nothing but the imaginative stories that are basically built upon the themes of science. Now, like in the story Jayant Narlikar's story, it was a theme of a slippage, time slippage, or a time slip of a person moving from one parallel universe to another parallel universe. Science fiction could be about many other themes, like it could be of time travel, it could be of understanding and visiting the extraterrestrial objects. It could be about artificial intelligences. It could be about many other things, something which have, in reality, it have not existed, and at least by science has still not been able to prove these things. For example, time travel is still a theory. There are a variety of scientists who have given us this theory about how, if at a particular point in the space, if the time and space could be bent at a particular point, then a wormhole could be created, and this wormhole could actually be used by individuals to move into time. And one person can move from present to back into the past, or past to future, or present to future. So there are a variety of theories, but there is no conclusive idea about if these things really exist. But, like as usual, there are writers who have taken immense imaginative liberties to create histories about these particular ideas and these particular themes, in order to speculate what would happen if one day one of these theories come into true and they come into existence. What will happen to a person? The present story that we are reading right now is also the story of time travel and not of time slip. Kindly understand the difference between time slip and time travel. When we talk about time slip is just one person's or an individual's movement from one point of time to yet another universe into the same time. You must understand that time has not changed, it's just that the space has changed. Changing of the space is like moving from one room to another room, but you are in the same time. Overall, you're in the same time, right? So you are changing your space. Similarly, time slippages are the story where people somehow are being able to slip through time, and they are able to move into a yet another space or yet another universe, which is a parallel universe to ours, which is a parallel world to ours. But time travel is not, probably, but it could be a travel in space also. It could be a travel, it is of course a travel in time, because an individual is able to move back and forth in the time, right? So in this particular story, you find the character of the story, or the protagonist of the story, Charlie, calls himself a very normal, average, moderate person. He's 31-year-old person who is very much busy with looking after the normal and the moderate difficulties of life, sorting out the normal difficulties of life. He earns for his family. He and his wife Lusana, they are a family, and he works and he tries to is able to earn a decent living for both of them. However, he is extremely nostalgic in his attitude, because Charlie has been shown to have a particular hobby of collecting the stamps. And this particular hobby of collecting the stamps has been declared by one of his friend, who is a psychiatrist, as his tendency of escapism, or his tendency to relate to the past. Now, when one person, you must understand that collection of stamp postages are nothing but that, there are people who keep on collecting stamps, and stamps keep on changing with the passage of time. So those people who want to do that, or who actually collect coins, or who collect photographs, or who collect stamps, there is this tendency within them to stay connected to the past. And this is not just their past, but the past of a particular nation or of a community. So should you actually view it as a escapist tendency, because they want to move back in past, because they do not find their present, or the people around them, or the situations around them congenial enough to live in them, they really want to go back? Or is it just a hobby of collecting things, of collecting memories. What is it? You need to decide for yourself. Okay, I'm not giving any answers on it, because you need to learn to develop your own opinion about issues and events. So then, of course, this habit has been called as a tendency of escapism. But there is one very interesting point which Charles gives in his own defense. He says that who doesn't have these escapist tendencies? We all have some tendencies of escaping into past or other, which I find, at least personally, completely true. Because whatever your age is, you could be 15-year-old, you could be 25-year-old, you could be 35, it could be 55-year-old. Each one of us find the golden moment of our life as our childhood, and all of us, almost all of us, most of us would want to go back to our childhood, because that was the time when we were really innocent. That was the time when we were loved by everybody, and that was the time when we did not have to bear a lot of responsibilities. We could actually live a very carefree life, isn't it? So Charles says that everybody has these escapist tendencies, everybody has this nostalgia in their mind. So he should not be labeled as somebody extremely different. However, his habit of collecting the stamps and the postages, I think, which he has inherited from his grandfather, has been viewed as something really weird by his wife and his psychiatric friend. But then there the story actually begins with his experience of one random day when he's just coming from his office and he's got late and he doesn't want to take a bus. Rather, he decides to take a train, and he goes on to a station called Grand Central's railway station, wherein he has been there for a number of times before, and he wants to go by train to his home, so that he could reach a little earlier, which wasn't otherwise be possible if he would have taken a bus. Therefore, he enters the station, he enters the first level, then he enters the second level, and he knows that the architecture of the Grand Central Station is such that it is quite confusing. And there have been times when he has moved into one corridor and got out into the office building of the office of some of at some other place, or he has been at some other place. It has been in hotel sometime, it has been in office sometime. So what he's trying to say is that the architecture is extremely confusing. There could be similar buildings, there could be similar corridors, there could be similar platforms maybe, which has made him confused. Now, once again, this is something which is very regular experience. Try going to the Connaught Place of New Delhi. Almost all the buildings over there look alike. So unless you are vigilant enough to know where you are, and you are referring, or you constantly you have to refer the alphabets by which the buildings are named as, you are quite it is a huge probability of you getting lost if you are new to that particular city and to the market. So it happens, and it happens with Charles also, that in the Grand Central Station he moves inside, getting himself lost very often. Now this particular times also he moves inside, and he's trying to look into the passage where from where he could buy a ticket and move back to his home, wherein he gets into a yet another uh, level. That was the third level. Now, there were only two levels that had already existed. There had never been any third level that had existed. So he goes there, and he finds, as he starts moving there, there is this long tunnel through which he moves, and he finds that there were few people, and the physical appearance of these people were extremely different from what he had viewed around him, and also the physical appearance of the things around him, for example the lamps and other things, window these ticket windows were also very few. Please read out for yourself, you need to do some reading work also. Read out for yourself how was it that third level of the Central Station was different from the other two levels. Okay, but then it was extremely different. It was so different that it looked almost a century old. So then he moves somehow to the window, ticket window, and he gives the money and he wants to buy the ticket, and he just realizes that the person gets very annoyed, and he realizes the money is not the right kind of currency, and he feels that Charlie was trying to befool him, and therefore he chides him, and he says that you cannot get me fooled with this wrong kind of a currency. And suddenly Charlie also gets a piece of a newspaper which tells that actually it was the newspaper The World's, which had stopped publishing for many years before. It has not been published for many years before. It has a reference to President Cleveland, and also the newspaper was printed in 1894. right? He immediately understands that he has somehow traveled in past, and if he takes this ticket and if he takes this train, he might as well move into this place, which is very much in 1894 or not in present. Now, he wants to buy the ticket, but he cannot buy the ticket because he doesn't have the right currency of 1894. At the same time, he finds this whole idea of moving into the past extremely good because he does not like the idea of living in his present, which is somewhere in 1900s. He wants to live in a time where there was no insecurities, where the World War One was still 20 years ahead and World War Two was 40 years ahead, which means that he is somewhere in 1950s or 1940s, where the world has seen both the world wars. Therefore, the world has also seen a lot of loss of human life and of human emotions. There has been a lot of fear and insecurity about the political instability in the world, which has been begotten as a result of these world wars. And at the same time, there is a lot of emotional insecurity which has come accordingly along with this political instability, this social instability. Therefore, he has always wanted to go back to a time where world wars have still not happened. People are living in a very natural way. There is no fear, there is no insecurity in that world, and he wants to live back in that particular time. As I told you, it is a general human tendency to go back to the childhood time. Most of the people, if you talk to them, and even if you realize to yourself, find their childhoods at the golden period of their lives because that was the time when they were loved by everybody, as I told you, and they did not have lots of responsibilities to take care of. They could live a very carefree life. Therefore, Charlie's intention of moving back in time is completely understood to all of us. Should we see it as an escapist tendency? Well, I'm not sure about it. Please think about it for yourself. Write down answers. If you have any doubts, please ask me. And we can have a discussion on it. If you need it, I can develop another video on it. But is he really an escapist? Does not want to encounter the realities of the modern world? Is he afraid of the harsh realities of the modern world? Or is it just an innocent wish to move back in time? Whatever your answers are, please, you may answer this to me in the comment section below. Anyway, he's not able to find out the right currency. He doesn't have the right currency, so he comes back because he now wants to take his wife also along with him to that particular place which lies in 1894. Now he comes back and he uses all his savings, whatever the savings he had made till now after working for so many years. He exchanged it for the old currencies, which is of course much lower than in comparison with the real currencies of the real world that he has. But he doesn't worry about it because he knows if he is able to move back in time, then at that time the money was the things of the cost of the things were extremely cheaper, and the money would be able to suffice him for his living. And he shares this particular instance with his wife and his psychiatrist friend. Once again, he realizes that his friend and his wife do not find him logical, they do not find him rational enough, and they think that there is something extremely wrong with Charlie, and they feel that Charlie needs some kind of rest, and probably his escapist tendencies are overtaking his rational faculties, and therefore they do not believe in him. But then Charlie is actually, he is into the process, he gets into the process of trying to find the third level, although he's not able to do that. So one fine day, when he was sitting at home, he finds one letter amongst the old stamp cards that he is in the habit of collecting of his grandfather's, and he takes up this particular envelope, he opens it, there is a letter in it, and in this letter is basically addressed to him, I mean Charlie, and the letter says that it is extremely good for him to be able to come back to that time. And this person, the writer of the letter, has been able to move to 1894, and he is just describing the things around, and he's saying that how they have large homes, people are extremely carefree, people are very friendly also, and he's just enjoying his time at one of his neighborhood, and he is liking the time, he's enjoying it, and he says that since you told me, I tried to find out a third level, and I got that third level, got into the third level, bought the ticket, and I took the train back to this place. You and Lusa, which means Charlie and Lusa, should also try to find out, keep on finding out for that third level, and they should also move back in time because it's a lovely time. The letter was signed by Sam, who is none other than his own psychiatrist friend, which means that his the very same friend of his who uh, who disbelieved him, or who was a little apprehensive about Charlie's ideas of getting into the third level of Grand Central Railway Station, has himself been able to find out that third level, and has been able to move back in time. Therefore, it is not just a psychological reality of Charlie's mind, it is actually a reality in the real world. So, do not just think that it is all being built upon the psychological reality. He wants to move back in time, that's his desire. But some of you have read the story in a way where you think that this is just a manifestation of a psychological desire, or a very innate psychological or subconscious desire that he has. Well, he has this desire, this is true, but the passage into the time and the travel into the time was actually happening, and this is very much clear by the fact that the same psychiatrist friend has been able to move back, and he believes that one day Lusa and Charlie would also be able to move back in time, and they would be living happily. So this is the story of the chapter. I hope you're able to understand. If there is any point in the story which you have not been able to understand, kindly put that question in the comment section below so that I may be able to answer that. I am very soon uploading yet another video on the NCERT questions plus some other extra questions of this particular chapter, because I find that NCERT question needs a detailed discussion. Well, if not a very detailed, at least a discussion of the NCERT question is definitely required. So please read the chapter yet again. See what is it that you find interesting or illogical in this story. What is it that has grabbed your attention, or is it just yet another science fiction story, or is it that you could something interpret out of it? Okay, so when science fiction is written, it is not just about writing scientific stories, it is very much about trying to push back the limitations of human consciousness, because as I told you, we have grown up with certain concepts, we have grown up with certain ideas. Science fiction's intention is to constantly push them back, and not just that, it is also trying to interrogate the various and variety of possibilities which might exist into this universe, which are just beyond the beyond the comprehension level of human mind, right? So this is about about thinking something which might not appear logical to us at one point. Imagine if you have a friend like Charlie who tells you about how he has been able to find a passage into the time which would be able to make him travel into the back. Are you going to believe this person right away? Probably not, because our consciousness, our understanding, our notion of the reality will not allow us to understand this kind of things or to accept these kind of things. We will definitely find it extremely irrational, or something which is highly uh, imaginative by the person, right? So there is this where does the boundary between imagination and reality lie? This is what that science fiction constantly questions. Are there boundaries between, can you actually say something as real and unreal? What is real and what is unreal? These are the questions that science fiction pose. Similarly, in this particular story, I'm just going back to Jayant Narlikar's story, where there was very beautifully Jayant Narlikar is posing or raising questions on human understanding of reality, and he says, We might all believe into one particular reality, but that is just one particular reality which has come up upon a consensual basis by a particular nation or particular community. So all of us, unspokenly, we have consented to believe into something which has become our own reality, but it is not the reality. There could be variety of different realities which would be present in the different parts of universe, or different universes altogether, or into the parallel universes altogether. So there he questions the notion of reality, a notion of reality which is understood by us human beings. In this particular story, by Charles understanding, or Charles finding out of that particular place from where he can move into the past, what the writer is trying to do is to trying to understand what is logical and what is illogical. Because as I told you, if somebody try to talk to you about time travel or something, you're not going to believe that person right at the first instance. Or if somebody, for example, tries to talk to you about a paranormal experience also, are you going to trust them? Because we have been so much we have been in a habit of thinking so much scientifically that we don't believe into the existence of anything else other than the human experiences, other than the human existences. So we don't believe in spirits, we don't believe in ghosts. So we right away um, discuss the possibility of the existence of non-living or non-human entities. So therefore these particular kind of science fiction, or the science fiction is very regularly, and it's fundamentally challenges the limitations of human consciousness, and just precisely presents us the story which makes us to think, it makes us to think about what is logical, what is illogical. Is there actually it makes us to think that the line between, or the difference between logical and illogical is extremely thin. It's very thin, and it's difficult for us to understand this kind of experiences. But then these kind of things may exist also beyond our comprehension, and this is what science fiction is trying to do. So just read the story, enjoy it. I'm not asking you to believe in time travel. You may believe, you may not believe, it is all up to you. But definitely we need to understand that we need to push back the limits of our understanding or of comprehending things, be it in science, be it in spirituality, be it in any other aspects of life. But one must be open to accept, or at least interrogate new ideas. Let us not just be stringent about what we know as the only real thing. Let us be more accommodative in our understanding of the world, and something which was probably beyond this world also. So I hope you read the story and you will enjoy it. More than reading, you should enjoy literature, and try to see what is it that Jack Finney under the story is trying to talk to you about. Thank you so much for watching this video, and you may leave your comments into the comment section below. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.